Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation. What is the natural definition of sensorality? Is sensation friction? That is where I wanted to start directly. Is the conceptualization, when I say the word sensation, is that friction? Why or why not? How many senses do you have? If you've watched that series, this series, we've asked that question before, but that's at the forefront of my mind. We have some more physical development. If you're new to this video or this series, what we are doing is effectively what we are doing is analysis. But effectively, if you took physics, linguistics, which isn't known at all, and mathematics all at the same time, we are developing a definition. And we have what's called syllability, literally the ability to be a syllable. You're well aware of what syllables are, but the overall structure of what is linguistics, the study of language, has never been rigorously articulated literally ever. And so we're going through an analytical process that you've not seen before. I'm just giving you some introduction, not much. Where I want for the people that have followed this so far, what is sensation friction? And so to stabilize a definition, right, definitions are definite. We have some sequence of syllability, these fundamental units. Syllables are elements. And we having, right, if I just say the sound A, and I said the sound E, we've gone through that a vowel is a unique state of resonance, a unique sound. And so we went through, I'm not going to go through all that again, don't have the intuition readily at the top of my head. How many vowels are there? How many unique sounds are there? Well, I guess we will. A, E, I, O, U, sometimes Y, never Y. Logically, if you have a set or a sequence or some sort of list and you have an exception and it's immediately wrong, you've not structured your logic in a way that can be completed. And so we are arriving at a definition. Again, all of this analytic process is in what you would call linguistics, which has never been seen before, but definitions are definite. It is a unique sequence of syllability that has unique meaning. Right? This is a notebook, notebook, 2 syllables, the sound note, book. And so that consonance and resonance, the amount of consonance and resonance you can put into one element is a syllable. And then to establish a fundamental definition, you find an inverse. So back to when I'm saying the sound A, and I want to make a different sound, I transition with another, I add consonants or I go to another vowel. A, E, A, S, A, T, ake. Again, just trivial examples, right? But you might have heard ache or eight in there. And so that differentiation, that literal physical differentiation of adding consonants to resonance produces difference in words, right? One of the words I'm saying right now, you can't break this. And so we have irreducibility. I've been talking this whole time in the English language. All of this analytical process, I'm already functioning on. And you are too. When you have a conversation with somebody, when you discuss anything, when you structure a sentence, you're executing what people call in physics, mathematics, and chemistry class, chirality. Grammar is chiral. When you conjugate a verb and make that consistent so it makes sense, you're executing chirality in a linguistic context directly. And so that's kind of the introduction, because again, you've never seen this, but that's all we're doing is we were describing how words work, and you're already intuitively functioning on these tools or these realities, this empirical fact of how words work, and we're demonstrating why it matters. And then this whole time we have this logical structure from rhythm to algorithm to establish this definition. We have this variable sensorality, which is a set of syllability, literally a sequence of syllables, looks like a word, but our knowledge base is sufficiently complete. And so we're showing the iteration of that syllability into word forms you already know. Right? Sensorality is essential. And we've already done this process. Speciality is special with an ITY. And so that is what I wanted to start with. Again, always kind of introducing the analytical process until again we arrive at the direct iteration of sensorality. Even though I've already done it over email, might as well continue it to completion with all of the little nuance to the progression. Because remember, it's like kind of the don't shoot the messenger, right? This analytical process, it doesn't matter if Brad, me, this guy executes it, right? It matters that the whole species know how to progress mathematics. right? That's knowing what analysis is and the fundamentals and proving them. Like that has infinite value truly. Who executes that at the species level doesn't really matter. So it's like kind of like the opposite of don't shoot the messenger, where it's like once you establish analysis, it doesn't matter who's the one actually executing the things. It's like nobody knowing what addition is, and then you're saying, here's addition, here's the sign, here's the little, all of the implications. That's what we've already done and what we're doing again. At the end of this, I will respond directly. If you're in the mathematical community, Tim Gowers had a little sequence of tweets that came up on Reddit. I wanted to respond to that. Nothing major, just a good elicitation of some of the stuff we've been talking about. But no, ChatGPT is not taking over mathematical research. Clearly. Again, can you program what I'm doing? Right? And this is what everyone does. You can't put input that isn't known. And the point of a good question is, or the point of good research is developing the right question. And so we'll get to Tim Gowers' tweets, but that is what we're doing here, is we're progressing our linguistics in a way where we have this self-contained question that we can answer definitively. And so we continue on, wanting to start where I left, or where I started yesterday. I just kind of, because I literally turn on the camera and just whatever's at the front of my mind is I just start talking. Because I do this derivation process literally all day. But the relationship of function and concept, right? Sentience conceptualizes, right? This table is not over there thinking. This chair is not thinking of anything. And so trying to get this chronology of function and conceptualization was what I was trying to talk about. I just kind of jumped into it. But clearly you have things that are inanimate, that don't think, they don't conceptualize. Sentience conceptualizes. You have the concept of function, right? Before human beings or sentient life was running around, that galaxy, the gas spewing around, the atoms, the electrons circling the protons, that's functionality, right? It's functioning, it's working, it's doing something, it's moving. But it's not conceptualized. It's not put into math class and you go up there and say, what is a function? Oh, how does that relate to a slope? Oh, we take the derivative. And so the rock over there is not conceptualizing anything. I personally just jumped into what is the relationship of functionality and conceptualization without much introduction. If you watch the whole episode, after about a minute, you get what I was talking about. But just in general, right, what is a concept? Like, can you, like at the sentience level, right, we have functioning, inanimate objects function, but now we're in math class, and we have this concept of a function, and we say, what is form indicates function, this chronology. You see an object, you say, what does it do? That's determining its functionality. So I kind of put some questions on the screen. How does conceptualization function, right? I'm Brad, I'm a working memory unit. I run around and I have experience and I remember certain things. And so I have ideas, right? Conceptualizations are ideas. Ideas are ideal. And so it's like I'm not going to get into the derivation steps yet, just again talking about what's at the front of my head. And so just what in the sentience environment in math class can you remove functionality from conceptualization? Well, sure. Again, that's what we said yesterday, existence, right? This notebook exists. I didn't say what is it doing yet, I just said it exists. And so conceptualization, then functionalization, I would say. But just overall, what was the chronology, or what is the chronology of concept and function? And so now getting directly into the steps, conceptualization is ideality. Just ideal with ity at the end. Ideas are ideal. Natural definition, direct iteration, the S to the L, same amount of elements. Ideal is idyllic. We've definitely crossed that one several times. Syllabic is idyllic. Right? Syllables are ideals. Sensorality is syllabilicality. Syllabilicality is capability. Right? Syllability, the ability to be a syllable. Then we've kind of gone through this conceptual progression of possibility. Right? What's the difference between possibility and ability and capability? Again, we're finding this linguistic form that completes. But syllability is the capability of being a syllable. It introduces more letters without changing the irreducible logic. Syllables are capable. Natural definition. Syllables are elements. And that's the biggest one because you see the periodic table of elements. What's an alphabet? Looks like a periodic table of elements to me. Elementality is irreducible to the physical spacing, the symmetry you see on the screen with the letters. You look at anything, I'm sure you're visually, again, that's what you center on. That's what you censor, is symmetry or asymmetry. And so, right, this elementality is irreducible. Spacing, how much mass is in one, how much mass is, space is nothing, right? Space, there's no thing, right? That's what it is conceptually. But mass creates the space, so to speak. Literally, the stabilization of mass removes, concentrates energy. But elementality is irreducible. Are decibels reducible? Emphasizing the word forms, are decimals reducible? What is a decibel to a decimal? Symbols produce decibels. Emphasizing the word forms, what is hot? I'm still not paying Paris Hilton. It is cool to be hot, right? What is popularity? You're in high school, oh, she's hot, he's hot, right? It's cool to be hot, the slang kind of definitions. Because literally it's not cool to be hot. 218 degrees Kelvin is not 0 degrees Kelvin. Again, we're in this world of conceptualization. When is right now? Emphasizing, again, that's a phrasing you always say, but what is the spelling of right? Again, this dichotomy, right, I have a rite of passage, or the opposite of left, the opposite of wrong, the synonym to correct. Where is right? And again, I don't think I pronounced it exactly correctly. Este es a la derecha de norte. I think when I did it, because I do that naturally. Again, if enough of the syllabilities in another language, I just present that. But east is to the right of north. And that is, again, these two logical presentations, or at least two of them, not exclusively these. But este es a la derecha de norte, right? Derecha and derecho, kind of that lista, listo. Now, I don't even care to preserve the pronunciation. If you get what I'm saying, that's the point. Right? But right, a la derecha, to the right, is really this conjugation of this iteration of derecho, which is like directo, which is not. You use a la derecha means to the right, and then you have este, which people use for esto, which is this, right? Este es east. We've gone through that explicitly, just wanted to get the pronunciation for whatever reason. Fortitude, altitude. Sensorality is altitude. What is orality to attitude? Oh, I don't like his language. He's got a bad language. That reflects a bad attitude. Right? Oh, he's strong. He's a strong personality. He's got a strong attitude. Sensorality is attitude. Sensorality is altitude. All right, another one of those things in Spanish, alto means high, but they have it on their stop signs, and you're kind of like, por qué, Carlos? Sensorality is the season of sensation. Sensorality sorts. Sensorality is sortality. Natural definition, and now explicitly, I know we've gone through those linguistic steps before, but we're kind of again, synchronizing our linguistics, our progression of concept to letter with, again, now we have agentic, but just, again, I know we've hit those steps before, but now it just feels like solvable or something. Again, I don't know, nothing else to say. Is orality a sense? Again, how many senses do you have? Is sensation friction? Sensorality is sensality. Sensality is salient. Natural definition, strength is resilience. What is resilience to resistance? Sensorality is a sense of resilience. Sensorality is a resilient attitude. Are leans resilient? Emphasizing the word resilient spells out the word lean. And so now we can we generalize our containment statement? Last time before we said, basis contains as, not is a quintessential example. The word as is contained within the letter structure of the word basis, not the word is. But they're both complete words. So what is completeness to containment? I think the complete word has to be contained to be derivative. Right? The difference between 3 and 8 is 5. The difference between E and A is I. Again, emphasizing lean and resilient. What is silence to resilience? Sensorality senses silence. Sensorality is restorative. Sensorality is restoration. Natural definition, restoration spells out the word oration. Orality orates. Oration is orality. Sensorality is orationality. Natural definition, direct iteration. What is storing to restoring? What is iterating to reiterating? What is reiterating to restoring? So getting to our chronology, our big inversions, our big energy, entropy, velocity, viscosity. The chronology, what is the chronology of them? They were kind of, again, pointing out every step, because again, like I said at the beginning, it doesn't matter if Brad gets the right answers at all, period, literally zero, and especially since I've already done it. Like there's no even like accomplishment for me to do besides the same shit again. But walking you through, because I do have this intuition where it's like I have this personal progression, where the end result is the end result. But I'm showing you all of the steps of, again, how this logic develops as much and as articulately as I can. But what is the chronology of these two big pairing, these dichotomistic pairs, energy, entropy, velocity, viscosity? Right? To me, it's very clear that energy, then entropy, movement potential, then disorder. Right? Entropy is pretty much exclusively the inefficiency of movement. You have no perpetual motion machines. You have the movement, you have energy is movement potential, and then you can't have disorder. Right? Why, Professor Sean Carroll? There's a great question. Why was the state of the universe really high entropy? Because again, it was maximum stability. But you have energy, the potential for movement, and then you have disorder, which is entropy. And so it's the actual movement of the physical things that produces entropy. That is why you have an extremely low entropy state at the beginning of this recent phase change. Again, you can pay me anytime you want, you fucking criminal. But that is very clear to me. Energy, movement potential, then the actual execution of movement cause is not efficient. That inefficiency is entropy. But I'm going in order. What came first, then or than? Right? We have this logical presentation. If you learn English, right? Because if you emphasize it the way I did, you can hear the difference between then and than. But if you're talking in a normal logical progression of your cadence and speed, like it's not as pronounced. And so if you're not a native speaker, you can kind of blend. And then if you're a fourth grader and speaking English, you learn this difference between then is to chronology and than is comparison. But what came first, then or than? And so now we have this fundamental linguistic differentiation, again, of the vowel E and A, right? Our fundamental inverse geometrically E and A. Because even from the sound basis, like E and A inverses, like what does that mean? Is it like an inverse frequency? Is that the right question? There's certainly geometric inverses, which that represents something. But we're being very complete with every step we make. And so then or than is to chronology, than is to comparison, but it highlights this fundamental difference between our fundamental inverse geometrically, E and A. I'm thinking it's the same for the sound. It doesn't matter. We are progressing along. What came first? And the reason I say it doesn't matter is because the analytical tools have already been established. Like if this process had not, if this was back in speciality, I wouldn't be saying that. But again, it doesn't matter if Brad gets all of the right answers again. Right? But that is directly what I'm thinking there. What came first, velocity or viscosity? So the energy entropy chronology seems extremely energy then entropy. Velocity or viscosity? Velocity is movement. Viscosity, the resistance to movement. And so what do you have any resistance to movement before you're moving? Can you separate the two? So to me right there, like that chronology, I don't even know if that's a valid question. I'm not sure about that presentation right there. But we have this other type of big inverse, rhythm and vibration, from rhythm to algorithm. We went through the syllability, rhythm, algorithm, 2 and 4 syllables. Again, we're reducing this whole structure. And like the titling, everything was, again, a form of logic presented in a way, again, this is, you've never, I mean, this is, it's so past what any you've seen in history. But the rhythm and vibration, again, explicitly, everything is moving. And so we have this definition of vibration, a cycle that doesn't do work, meaning it doesn't move, but because of geometry, which is an apparent reality, everything is moving. You can't return to the same starting spot physically or spatially or in time anyway. And so it's like everything is unique all of the time, constantly, which constant doesn't even like make sense anymore. Nothing's golden last, pony boy. But for rhythm and vibration are two words that describe motion, right? So that's contained within velocity. And we have this inverse of velocity is viscosity. And so I still want to, I'm conjecturing that velocity, you have to have movement before you can have resistance to movement. So then back to the phase changes, again, the stabilization event. Movement takes time. And so it's still, there's some nuance to the chronology of velocity and viscosity. Rhythm and vibration just describe velocity, but regardless, movement, as our big development yesterday, where energy requires friction, energy requires space, then energy requires friction, but then I even switched it on the screen to say friction produces energy, right? Friction produces movement potential. So velocity requires friction, right? You can't move without friction. And vibration and rhythm, two words for movement, motion, two words for velocity. And without much, I'm the guy that solved all of science, velocity feels like the most general word, right? Why not even acceleration, right? Acceleration is a change of velocity, but it's just like, for whatever reason right now, velocity feels like the king of physical ontology, right? It's the word, the linguistical representation of all movement, of all motion, of all rhythm, of all vibration, of all oscillation or scintillation or any of these other words of vibration, right? Because all of these words stabilize back to, again, this vibration syllability 3, not rhythm, right? Algorithm, logarithm, it reduces. This whole structure reduces. I still don't think you guys got that this whole time. Because when we're at the end of speciality, it's like we're filling in the gaps. And so you see the entire logical structure, the whole quality of the proof, which is that by doing all of this rigorous consistency development, we produce the entire thing for the next one, right? You literally go into, you leave a place better than you found it. You prove something and you structure the whole proof for the next one, and then just keep going, I guess. But velocity feels like that's like, if you said one word about physics, it's like velocity is like, it encompasses movement, encompasses like static, not moving. It's the word. It's the big man on campus, velocity. It's got motion. And so then stating the fundamental theorem of physics, and then all of this is like the same thing. And again, it doesn't matter. It all reduces to a working definition. But friction is viscosity. Right? The inverse of velocity is viscosity, directly, literally. Viscosity is the resistance to flow, currently identified. Flow is a word for movement, right? Friction is viscosity. Resistance is resistance. But the chronology is still not clear. We move on. Friction produces tension, right? That's kind of like the conceptual, everybody's aware, right? There's a lot of friction, right? There's a lot of tension. I can cut it with a knife. Emphasizing tension is an iteration of sensorality, sensation, right? That T and the S directly changing their elemental slot produces sensation, which is a form of sensorality, right? Sense, Q-R-S-T, S-E-N-S, iterate that element to T, you get scent. We've already gone through that. I'm just emphasizing that. We're getting to this fundamental inversion. I think of just of two elements, two letters, and we'll reduce everything. And then again, for the historical relevance, that's like the structure. You could prove all of this in again, you guys have accepted proofs of 1 + 1 = 2 being like 100 pages. Like you guys would never remotely fucking get close to completion ever in a million years, and I mean that literally. But friction produces tension. Tension is viscosity. And that one's kind of like, okay, I tuned my guitar, the string is tense. How is tension viscosity? That's worth pointing out, but right, friction produces tension. Friction is viscosity. That's extremely clear. Tension is viscosity. So, again, worth pointing that out, moving along. Because again, any intuition that isn't, we're forming the right question, right? So if it's the tension is viscosity, what does that mean? It doesn't need to mean anything. We're showing you the logical progression to this working definition. The working definition resolves everything that can be solved, because it demonstrates completeness and incompleteness. Resistance is tense. Friction is tension. Friction is ascension. That's what I just walked you through. Friction is restriction. Tense is strict. Constricting tenses. So again, you have a conceptual realization, a light bulb moment. You have a bunch of theorems to the point where it's like, I don't even remotely care about the theorems. But I'm literally making YouTube content. And having a math subject in your head and being able to do infinite theorems, that's a pretty good endless cycle of things to talk about. But structuring it in, again, centralizing it into one of these axiomatic derivations is the only mathematics, like I said, like it's a feeling. I don't wake up and say, I want to like do math today. It's just this, it's an overall feeling of incompletion that I get from watching, like just interacting with society. Because again, the overall conceptualization just like recycles every 7 years. It's just a new generation growing up. But friction is resistance. Is sensation resistance, right? Is sensation friction? And so we have sight and touch. Everything is connected, but nothing is touching. Those independent charges. But so now, again, I even wanted to point that out. Charge. Is charge dichotomistic? Positive and negative charge? No. Charge is charge. I just think it's this irreducible word we can't break down anymore. Is there dichotomy to charge? And then again, you have charge changes, right? And it's again that cutting the N to make the R is the geometric difference between charge and change. But then you go from charge to charges, right? Like Sean Carroll studying charge, and then he's going to get charges. And so you have this physical preservation. When we talk about proportionality, similar triangles, it doesn't matter how long the lengths are, the internal angles are proportional. They scale, they're the same. And so charge, clearly, conceptually, the word doesn't change from charge to charges. You're just making it plural, but it has just a different conceptualization. So charge is this irreducible thing that at this point, I want to say it's not even positive and negative. Because we have chronology, we have one thing, then two things. But we certainly have a proton and an electron. And so I just want to leave that there. Again, any physical intuition, I'm the only physicist. There's no point even like, you don't have the right to think when I talk. Sounds arrogant, but I'm talking specifically to the academics, to the people that want to be professors. There's objectively nobody that can develop the intuition. And the answers are correct independent of me. And so like I said, the point of this is to walk you through the progression of the intuition realizing. Because I don't think anyone, like I said, I don't think the intuition's available. Once I bonk my head and go none-night forever, I don't think, because this intuition gets dispersed as a physical consequence, right? If you have combustion, right? If you have a flame, the gas doesn't matter if it starts a house fire, if it starts a campfire. One's good, one's terrible. It's just going to ignite. The dissemination of the structure and logical progression of analysis has already happened. And so, again, just trying to provide as much insight to this process as possible. But again, we have numerically two, right? Sight and touch. We have smell and taste, right? Those are both forms of touch. If you have a molecule touching your tongue or a molecule touching your nose, it's the same thing. Or again, so like hearing, is that touch? I want to say, yeah, it's the actual, again, the actual molecules bumping into your eardrum, not just the overall motion. Yeah, I want to say that. Again, any insight that comes to mind. But vision, right? Vision to me is exclusive, definitely not touch, right? Like why, again, light is not the word radiation, right? The photon does not go away. But when I look out to the space, like there's light pollution, it distorts. Again, I've already resolved this. I don't want to spend a lot of time here. But sight and touch, kind of two, is sensation resistance. And so kind of getting back to revisiting some very fundamental differentiations you've learned as an English speaker. Again, the difference between 3 and 8 is 5. A direct, explicit numeric statement that contains our base. Or again, basis derives to base, and I still naturally, we went through that yesterday. But more syllability to less dissyllability is derivation. The difference between 3 and 8 is 5. The difference between E and A is I. It's a direct containment statement to a direct base. But regardless, again, E and A are these inverses. But right now we have this sentence or phrasing, I before E except after C, right? But don't you see that? I before E except after C? It's kind of like, it's like, again, shitty attempts at like trying to find this difference between E and A is I. And the same thing with gooses or geeses, right? You have plurality, right? So how do you conjugate, how do you preserve consistency between verb and noun with plurality? And you have this S, and then you have this vowel structure, right? So is it gooses or geese, right? It's not a complete answer, but you can see that it's the difference. Right? We have this a clear proven massive theorem of our basis. The difference between E and A is I. And that is, again, we're getting to this resolution of demonstrating that completely with sensorality. But I before E except after C, and then goose or geeses, and then even not explicitly that, but the same thing, tomato, tomato. And that's just more of the dichotomy of pronunciation, or this, what we've been calling dichotomistic the whole time. And so, one word, one overall linguistic construction, word, tomato or tomato, the progression, again, of the consonants in resonance. And so, sensorality is plurality, right? Plural is more than one. Our fundamental stability of 2 is what? 2 or more. More than 1 is 2. 2 is exclusively 1 more than 1. So if you do the fundamental reductions, you get the super low-hanging fruit that you don't get to unless you solve everything. But 2 is uniquely 1 more than 1. So we've derived and completed the first, with the Fibonacci sequence, that thing. We solved the whole thing. It's done. Boop. Because the sequences after that are not physically relevant. The numbers have to represent physical things. And so, sorry Fibonacci, you lose again. I solved all of math like multiple times. And truly, like historically, what would it take to say solve all of math? I'm demonstrating complete analysis, which is hilariously mythically past that. I mean, I derived all of mathematics, like literally the linguistic structure, what could be the logical implications of that. Again, like, I mean, that's like a prerequisite before you start doing analysis. And so hilariously past anything you've ever seen in history. But plural is more than one. Everything is plural. Sensation is plural. And so, again, we're just executing an overall analytical process, arriving at a stabilized fundamental definition. What is sensorality? And then we just continue on with our derivation and analysis and realization. And so that is what I have for right now. My rights continue to be violated. I continue to beg for a little bit of money to eat properly, to sleep properly, and to work. My life quality truly remains at 0. Absolutely nobody cares. That is what I have for right now. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.